Amazing. So nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here, and a big congrats on Bad Acts. It's entertaining, thought-provoking, and actually kind of haunting. I mean, I'm still thinking about your family long after the credits done.
Thank you. No, I really, really appreciate that. I hope it is a film that beyond the credits roll, it's something that sticks with the audience members. So it's reassuring to hear that from you. Thank you.
Oh, no, give us the genesis of the film. I mean, you documented your family, but how did it all come about?
Yeah, so I mean, it really started when I moved back home. Me and my girlfriend, my now wife, moved back home from New York, and um, I had a lot of free time on my hand being an unemployed filmmaker. So I always wanted to share my family story even before the pandemic. I always thought I would like write a script or it would be a TV, whatever it was. I didn't know it would end up being a documentary. But in those early days, I really sat down with my parents and Jacqueline and kind of just got this whole oral history of like, how did this restaurant come to be what it is today? Because, if you think about it, I mean, a Mexican American woman and a Cambodian refugee who, he literally came here with the shirt on his back. They were able to settle down in this town of Bad Axe, Michigan, and, try to open up a donut shop, failed at that, try to change it into like a restaurant, failed at that, but then, through Jacqueline's help and working together as a family, was able to turn it around and not only like make it a successful restaurant, but also like the pinnacle of like what Bad Axe is in so many ways. And like, to me, like that was always a story I wanted to share. On the other side of that, being a bored, unemployed filmmaker at home, I was always like the kid growing up in my family who just always naturally had a camera around. So I was just filming life every single day, like as it was. And with that, with like no motivation other than like, wow, like this is such an interesting time and like history where we're just all together, like as a family going through, you know, who knows what's going to happen from day to day, week to week. To me, it was just like, I want to be able just like to have like a time capsule of these moments that like I could share with my kids one day and Jack can share with her kids. Right. Cause like, it was really like these home videos. But I think it was, it was like around the time of like the Black Lives Matter movement. I began to see, sort of like this like dichotomy, form between like all of like this rich history I had captured in the early days of how the restaurant came to be what it is today with my father's past and, all of that. But then also like during this time, just after at the Black Lives Matter movement was happening, it's like, whoa, here we are still trying to keep this American dream we spent, so long building together as a family, like trying to keep that alive during such a consequential time in recent history, with the pandemic, with racial reckoning, with the divided nation. I mean, that was really like when I began to marry those two footage together, like that was like how the film really began to take like the form that you see on screen today. Because it was like, wow, like if I'm going to tell this American dream story, like you have to also talk about what that American dream looks like in 2020.
You know what? Look, I am as an immigrant from Southeast Asia who moved to Indiana when I first moved here with
Oh
my
my
mom.
gosh.
I mean, I feel your pain. So, um, so in a nutshell, though, it's about a Cambodian family living in Bad Axe, Michigan, with their
Cambodian Mexican. I'm
restaurant.
gonna say Cambodian Mexican.
Cambodian
I have
Mexican. That's right.
Mexican too. Yep.
Yeah, so it's about a Cambodian family living in Bad Axe, Michigan, with their restaurant Rachel's at Bad Axe, a restaurant made with love. That's the nutshell. But you're right, it's more than that, right?
Yeah, for me, like it's just so much the story like of not only the American dream, but like what America is today. You're just seeing it through the lens of this Cambodian Mexican, family, trying to run a restaurant and keep the dream alive. I mean, look, the film touches on like so many different themes, and it touches on like generational trauma and races. I mean, just all of these different themes, but it's also specific to our family, but also just so universal to so many Americans as well. And so like I in wanting to share my family's story, like I always wanted to like I always wanted to open up like what the idea of what it means to be American, because when you look at like families like mine and probably yours, right? Like this isn't like the traditional idea of what people think of as an American family. But having shown this film around the country and at festivals and people saying like, I feel seen, I feel represented, to me, it's just like, no, like the Siev family, my family, like is what America is to so many people. And therefore, like that is a part of the American experience. Yeah. So
And
it's so much just about like, I guess opening up like what it means to be American, and the Siev family, my family is part of that, you know?
and then the pandemic happened.
Then the pandemic happens, right? And
Yeah.
just look, nobody knew it was going to happen day to day, week to week. I mean, I remember, you know, me and my wife thought we would be back in New York by May, and like that certainly wasn't the case. I mean, just all of these events you see unfold in real time, but you're seeing it through such a specific and personal lens, you know?
You know, when you told your family, when you told your parents, Jacqueline, you wanted to document them, how did they react?
Well, it didn't really start off as like me documenting, because like it just started off as like me just like with the camera and just doing what I've always done. I think where more opinions started to come in was when I actually started editing the film, because
Yeah.
it's like it's one thing to just like have, you know, 300 hours of footage and not do anything with it. It's another thing to start taking that footage and start putting a story together, and then they begin to see themselves as like these imperfect characters with flaws and arcs, and you know what I mean? So like that's where they, I think, you know, they began to have their opinions come in, and especially once the trailer of the film comes out, which you see the consequences of that begin to happen in the film. I
Yeah.
mean, that's where, you know, my mom turns to me, she says like, David, you don't live here, you don't have to put up with the consequences with that. And she's right, like I don't, like I get to go back to New York like at the end of the day, and they are the ones that have to put up with the consequences of this film being out there. And so like that was a process we really had to navigate together as a family. And I think once you know the family got to see what I was editing and see what I was working on, and I did be as collaborative as I could with them. I really did. And you can imagine Jacqueline had different notes than my dad, and everyone had different notes. But you know, as a director, like I think it's important to try, you know, anything and everything to tell the best story. And I really do have to credit my family for helping to shape the film into what it is. So by the time I showed them the final cut, I mean, I think they saw that like, oh, this isn't like a politically divisive piece. Like David just told the story of our family with this 2020 being the backdrop of all of it. And I think once they saw that, it was really a love letter to them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's when they became on board, and now are so proud of the film. I mean, they're on all the festivals with me and come to all the screenings. So it's really
Oh,
special to be able to celebrate our story together.
I suspect the hardest to please is Jacqueline. Am I right?
Yep. Jacqueline's the hardest to please and always will be. But look, like she loves the film. She's so, you know, she's so proud of me, which me just fills me with so much joy. So it has her seal of approval on it. Look, she did want more cat scenes in it, and I'm like, I don't know if we can include any more any
That's
more
so cute. Yeah. Her cat with the legs. Yeah.
yeah, but I, you know, it was, I do realize it was important to include that scene in there because she does have the biggest heart than anyone I know. Like the fact that I mean, you see the cat in the poster, right? I mean, you know, she's someone who will take care of any living being, and you know, that taking care of a handicapped cat takes a lot of effort and a lot of hard work, but she's willing to do that. And that's just the type of person she is.
You know what? Your dad described her perfectly. Somewhere like in the beginning of the film, really, like what Jacqueline is, who Jacqueline is. I'm like, oh, there's like a love, a push and pull,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they both are passionate, and so they clash, but they love each other so, so much, I think.
They do. They really, really do. I mean, look, like one of I think the biggest conflicts in the film is seeing these two generations come at a head. And that's where it's important for the history to unveil itself with my dad and what he had to go through in Cambodia, and also Jacqueline and like, you know, her trauma as well too, of like, you know, growing up with that fear of you're always going to lose something you work so hard and put your life into. You see that they just have different ways of navigating just everything that happened in 2020, but they both just want what's best, you know, for the family at the end of the day. And like, I hope that like that's a message like audiences can take away from that about a bigger picture of America, right? Because like I really do think we as Americans, like I think most of us really do want what's best for our country. I think we just have completely different ways of going about that. But as more audiences watch, you know, our film and see like how our family is able to, at the end of the day, cohabitate and thrive together and communicate and have dialogue, like I hope like that's something audiences can take away of like, this is how we need to hopefully like approach these problems head on in our country together, is just being able to, again, have dialogue, cohabitate, and just communicate with each other.
How many hours of footage did you accumulate,
I think
David?
it's like 300 or 350 hours of footage. So you can
Oh,
imagine cutting it down to 101 minutes was a bit of a challenge.
you know what? How is your dad now? Tell us how they are now.
Everyone
Start
is,
with your dad.
yeah, everyone is doing great. My dad, he's so proud of this film. He's been on the road with me. We're in the middle of actually a 45-day road trip right now. I think this is like day 20, 27 or 20, something like that. And you know, honestly, we actually were just in a car accident last week in Boston at one of these festivals we're at. He lost all of his front teeth.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was just me and my parents. But you know what? He ended up getting surgery and he was on the road with us again 2 days later. And
Yeah.
so like he is just so like motivated to just like get this film out there and like to share our story. Even doing it with no teeth right now.
Oh.
So
What
he's,
about
yeah,
what
he's,
about oh, I'm sorry. What about Jacqueline and Mike?
Jacqueline and Mike are doing great. They started building their house back in Bad Axe. The baby is doing, gosh, she's such a bundle of joy. They're doing really, really well. They're on the road with us as well with some of these festivals, but no, they're excited to hopefully move out of my parents' house and start, you know, living in their forever home in Bad Axe. So
What about your youngest sister? Is she gonna be helping with the restaurant? Did she decide?
her and Austin and Skylar have really just taken leadership of that place. I mean, the reason why my parents and Jacqueline and Mike can like be on the road and you know help promote the film is because the three of them have stepped up in such a big way where they can run the restaurant by themselves. And especially like Raquel, like, look, she's there 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, and she does that job with such pride. And I could not be, and I say this on behalf of everyone in my family, more proud of just the leader she's turned into over the past, you know, 2 years. So
Real quick, David. So, you know, I know, at least in my family, I mean, most Southeast Asians frown upon media jobs, right? TV or film or whatever. How did you get your dad to say yes to that?
I mean, it was a long process. I mean, look, like I wanted to be a musician in my early days, and he was not happy with that. And so when I finally, you know, was able to, I got into college at the University of Michigan, and I told him I was going to study film. He was like, oh, he's like, okay, like I did promise him that he could study whatever he wants as long as he got into Michigan. But now, you know, he's so proud of me. I mean, to be honest, I didn't get told good job really much at all growing up. But with this film and just seeing like how I guess him seeing like, oh wow, like my son actually does have a knack for this. He tells me a good job like every day, and he's so proud of me, and he wants me to keep doing this forever because I think he sees how happy it makes me at the end of the day. So he's become such a supportive parent. So
that is so great to hear. A big congrats on Bad Axe again, Mr. David. I cannot wait for viewers to see this when it comes out November 18th. It's one of my favorite documentaries of the year, definitely.
Thank you, Manny. I so appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, congratulations again and good luck on everything, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.